welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're looking at 10 licensed games that don't suck.
You're about to find out.
A lot of licensed games have negative reputations for being soulless cash grabs. But for this list, we'll be looking at those that went above and beyond, adding something great to the legacy of their IPs. What licensed game do you think stands out among all the rest? Let us know in the comments. Before we begin, we publish new content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor.
Why did you come back to save me?
I had a family once. A wife. And a son. And I buried them along with everyone I ever knew.
While we had gotten a few games set in the world of Lord of the Rings before, none of them hit quite as hard as Shadow of Mordor. Set in between The Hobbit and Tolkien's epic trilogy, players set out on a quest to avenge their family, slain by the hands of Sauron's minions. On top of being an interesting original tale in a vast world we already loved, it was ridiculous fun slaying your enemies, in particular thanks to your Wraith abilities. The game's most notable feature, the Nemesis system, showed off impressive enemy AI by having certain foes remember you and your actions. Plus, it didn't come with a bunch of tacked-on microtransactions like the sequel, so bonus points for that. DuckTales Remastered. Amidst the mostly terrible licensed games shoveled onto the NES, Capcom's DuckTales stood out as a terrific platformer with insanely catchy music. When it was remastered in 2013, developer WayForward did everything right. As Disney's Scrooge McDuck, players pogo their way through different areas around the globe in search of treasure. The stunning hand-drawn character sprites popped, and the music blended the 8-bit originals with orchestral flair. There were also a couple of new levels, while the older stages were expanded on and given new objectives. It may not be the most remarkable remaster ever made. The original game is only 5 levels long after all. But it does a fantastic job at respecting the nostalgia while adding its own spin on things. Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic. In a galaxy far, far away, thousands of years before the movies take place, one of the greatest Star Wars stories of all time occurred. BioWare's Knights of the Old Republic has been credited not only as one of the studio's strongest, but one of the best RPGs in existence. It's easy to see why. The story placed emphasis on player choice. Your actions determined whether you leaned towards the dark or light side of the Force, which in turn led to different abilities. Although your character was custom, those around you were deep and engaging, with players still proclaiming their love for them 20 years later. Naturally, it shows its age, so we eagerly await the remake announced in 2021.
They must be stopped.
South Park: The Stick of Truth.
This guy's fast douchebag, trying to block all his attacks. Kiss my ass!
One might expect a video game set in South Park to be just as crude and depraved as its source material. While The Stick of Truth definitely delivers on the vulgar humor, it's also a surprisingly well-balanced turn-based RPG. You begin as the new kid in town, joining in with the other children in a make-believe fantasy war. Of course, this being South Park, things quickly go off the rails as your team contends with various supernatural threats, including aliens. Due to the show's simplistic animation, the developers were able to perfectly imitate it, making it legitimately feel like you were playing through an episode. It already received a superhero-centric sequel in 2017, so here's hoping there's more on the way. Marvel's SpiderMan. Insomniac's 2018 release is not the only good Spider-Man game, but in our opinion, it is the best one. The developer made the right call setting the story a few years into Peter's tenure as the hero, allowing room for many villains to appear and for the team to include tributes to the character's history. More importantly, it was an absolute joy to play. Web swinging through open world NYC felt sublime, ensuring we would never use the fast travel feature. Combat focused on Spidey's agility and mobility, with just enough gadgets to keep things fresh without being overwhelming. Its open world was a little overstuffed, and we could do without the MJ stealth sections. But everything else is a webhead fan's dream come true.
Don't let him get you!
Alien Isolation. It would be understandable if some fans were cautious leading up to Isolation, considering the god-awful Colonial Marines released the previous year. Thankfully, that didn't tarnish its chances at a legacy as the best game set in the Alien universe. As the daughter of series protagonist Ellen Ripley, players search for their missing mother 15 years after the groundbreaking first film from 1979. But honestly, all the terror that audiences felt is nothing compared to when you're actually trying to avoid a xenomorph. The enemy AI in this game has been praised by everyone who's experienced it. The xenomorph is exceptionally smart and therefore horrifying. Drenched in a tense atmosphere, it's not a horror game you're likely to forget anytime soon. GoldenEye 007. GoldenEye was the perfect game at the perfect moment, which is a little surprising since it released 2 years after the movie it was based on. Just as the film revitalized the Bond franchise, the game pioneered FPS games on home consoles. The single-player mode expanded on the plot while still being unlike most shooters of the time. But what truly set it apart was its multiplayer, added as an afterthought, but which would be the reason people praised it for years to come. Across the now iconic maps with a variety of modes and characters both new and old, we poured countless hours into it with friends and siblings. In fact, it's the reason I play Inverted to this day. The Walking Dead.
No! Ben! Help her!
There are many subpar things tied to the Walking Dead franchise, but as we all very well know, Telltale's episodic take is not one of them. A new story in a familiar universe told the tale of Lee, a former professor and convicted killer who comes to care for Clementine, a young girl separated from her family. Although Telltale had used its choice-based setup in previous releases, more weight was added to it here, primarily because a zombie-infested world makes each painful decision that much more so. But it was still fascinating seeing how your choices affected elements in further episodes. With so much acclaim, it's no wonder it received multiple sequels.
Well, he's been through a lot, Clem. He's just gotten a little overwhelmed, that's all. I'm sure he'll be fine.
Before we leave tomorrow, will we have time to look for my parents?
Batman Arkham City.
How should we proceed? Stand down. Let Two-Face have his fun.
Rocksteady set a new gold standard for superhero games when it released Batman Arkham Asylum. Remarkably, they did it again with a sequel only 2 years later. The studio went open world as Batman became trapped in Hugo Strange's prison encompassing part of Gotham City. However, he also had to deal with the Joker, who injected the hero with his own tainted blood in an attempt to get a cure. It was a flawless evolution from the more linear first entry, with plenty of rogues and objectives to tackle. The Dark Knight's mechanics made gliding through the night sky, solving crimes, and taking on baddies an endless display of fun. And just like the first game, it was a wonderful reunion of heavyweights from the 90s animated series.
I figured you could use my help, Selena.
You're right. I think I chipped a nail back there.
The Witcher 3: Wild Hunt.
Want to talk to him?
What about?
Give me a bottle of something strong.
Most of our entries were inspired by popular visual mediums. No disrespect to the book series, but it's CD Projekt Red's games we have to thank for The Witcher's current state. Wild Hunt released in 2015 and still receives acclaim to this day as the finest adventure Geralt of Rivia has ever been on. A captivating narrative, side quests and expansions that were as good if not better, wonderful magic and swordplay, and incredible visuals and voice acting all combined for an action RPG that stands taller than most games in any genre. Plus, all of that was packed into an engrossing, war-torn open world with awesome, intimidating enemy designs. The Witcher 3 is both a critical darling and a financial juggernaut.
Check out these other great clips from MojoPlays, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.